Hello people, and welcome back to part 26 of the Noobs Guide to City Skylines. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Please excuse the COVID voice again this week. I'm still struck with COVID, and I'm trying to record in advance here just so there's some content going out. So you have to bear with it for another episode. Sorry. But either way, I hope you can bear with it slightly. A wonderful support last episode with the nature reserve. It turned out really nicely, and we had a really good shout of someone suggesting some kind of biking trails as well, because we were getting people cycling through the nature reserve. So we can definitely do some bike trails in this part of the map as well. However, as the Noobs Guide has developed now, we've discussed kind of campuses and how industries works and nightlife and downtown road network frames and all these kind of staple city skylines lessons, if you like. But what we haven't talked about is what happens when we have two suburbs that are sat next to each other but aren't joined together. How do we merge an area? How do we connect two different building styles? And indeed today I want to introduce the focus of a kind of micro town centre, something that can help you centralise and give positioning and scale to a suburb, which I think is something a lot of us can often struggle with, especially I did when I was new to the game as well. So we've got a cute space here between the amusement park suburb and the old mining town. Two quite distinct styles, but there's lots of different ideas on both sides here that can be fused together to help create a nice cohesive suburban space. Let's merge two suburbs in the Noobs Guide, shall we? Okay guys, so what I would like to do here first is to just analyse the road network and what exactly is going to happen. Trams are certainly a key feature of the build, so we're going to bring these in as to where we want them. We're going to grab the 4-lane road with tram tracks from Snowfall, of course, and then we're going to upgrade this straight down this road, and then we'll find a place for them to split off, probably about here, I imagine, with this one-way network being extended out to date. And then let's have a little look at where the tram is going to sort of enter this space here. So what I'd almost like you to consider as a space like this is something of a micro town centre, if you like. Okay, so a little focal point for the suburbs. It can be used to conjoin two suburbs as well, like we're going to be using it as to do it that today. So let's come in to the tram roads. Also unzone all of this too. So I'm just going to create a little layer of depth here, just a 2 tile radius, I think. Then we're going to draw this up to the roundabout. We're going to come slightly short and then do a curve instead. Just gives a slightly more realistic turning circle for the trams. Same through here again in the middle with the slight curve. And then feed that back through. So that's going to break the pattern, and that's going to work quite nicely in the roundabout actually. We'll definitely want to remove the traffic lights though, which we'll do in a moment. Okay, cool. So of course this is going to eventually hook back in with this one, you imagine, right? So let's just see if we can give that connection straight away. There we go. It's going to want sorting out, but we'll leave it for the time being. And then this will also leave from this point too, at which point I'm actually going to do this as tram road first, because I would like, so I'm just going to remove the arterial because this is going to allow me to align my own roads a lot easier. So let's go for some one-way treed road, and then exactly the same process that we did here now. You can see how far these are together. It's 180 from the tram line, so we know that is that first tileage there, and then there we go. And then what we can do now is just repeat that pattern that we had for the one-way system as it comes out this way, when we had a look at how we could perhaps be a little bit more creative with our 4-way road networks. Okay, so it's all about combining previous and existing ideas when we're looking at two distinct suburb styles like this. So we're going to do a sort of a little mini town centre, right? Some combination of all the road network patterns in the area, and then just trying to fuse it all together so it's just nice and it flows and it fits together and it doesn't just look too jarring as you transition from one space to the next. So should be some nice ideas today, I think. Should be quite a fun one. Hope everyone's settled in. just like to take a moment here, guys, to appreciate how far City Skylines Vanilla has come over the years, right? Just the ability to upgrade trees now and like new pavement with the content creator roads. Granted, a little bit of node controller would be more than welcome, but one day in the Noobs guide we'll get there. And yeah, so we just expanded out our residential patterns, frontage networks, tying arterial systems together, and going quite over the top and almost flamboyant with your arterial road networks can really just help bring them a little bit more personality, right? Seeing all these layers of height that have developed around other sides of the city now coming into play as well. So what I'd like to do now is really spend the rest of the episode talking to you all about different types of suburban detailing ideas, different uniques and patterns and things that we have and haven't talked about before to help tie two areas together. So what I'd like to discuss first is the introduction of a kind of micro town centre that sits outside of a public transport hub. So at this point now, we're going to be having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 methods of public transport here, each doubling back on each other, so a total of 10 stops in all. So the public transport convergence here is mega. So let's continue to respect this with another little sort of suburban town centre design, alright? Let's go ahead and grab one of our roads. I'm going to come up with no guideline, and then let's leave 4 tiles in between here. Let's go 4 right there, that should be good. And then let's dive into zoos. We're going to grab ourselves a zoo plaza. I'm going to use 2 of these. I'm going to place it in the middle. Now, do we prefer the zoo one, or actually do we want the park one for this? I think we might actually go for city park. And because the city park one actually has the fountain on it, which is a nice little bit of decoration. So let's go into our grid snap. We'll draw through a pathway here. Of course, given interconnectivity. I do want zoning sat in these spaces over this side. So I'm going to use a little bit of fencing just to reset the zoning tiles over to this space. So I'm going to have, perhaps, bet we can even do it here again, you know, right? If we were to actually bring the fence in further down, yeah, that will reset those tiles there. So let's go ahead and get some 3 deep commercial in. Alright, and then why don't we throw in a little service asset here, perhaps a post office from the industry stuff. And then again, what we're going to do is come into the vanilla bushes and we're going to grab the large bush, which is one quite underrated, I think. It can be quite garish, but it does have a place within the game. I'm going to come up to a 2 meter fill, and I just want to create a very large, thick hedgerow, essentially, between the pathway and the train station. So also upgrade this into park life path, and then we'll bring this probably entirely around the back of the tram network now. So already starting to get quite cute and busy, isn't it? That's what we want to see. Very nice, very nice. So we could actually upgrade a section of this into tram with road. So we could do it like this, and I think that's actually what I'm going to do, but I'm going to manually draw in the tram road again, just so I can kind of customize where exactly my pedestrian crossing fits in. So we'll do that. That's going to be great. Yep, and then let's just reinstate that little pathway now that was here. That's just going to continually give little spots of walkability again throughout Noobs Guide. Yes, please. Alright, and just look at this place now. So busy. It's so good. Just, oh. It never stops, you know. It is a constant feed of ants and just coming in from monorail to intercity, internal train lines, and all those little factors of orientation and mirroring assets that we've factored into our builds over the many months that we've been building the Noobs Guide City now, and it's all slowly come together, hasn't it? I think it has. Of course, assets historical, as and when we like them. I'm happy with a lot of these low-level ones, so we'll keep them in. Alright, cool. So there's definitely more walking convergence we can deliver here. Let's come back into our pathways, and we're going to grab the liberal arts path on a low elevation, snap to a road length and an angle. And then we'll delete these as well. You will come over here. The taxi stand will bend to the rim of the pathway. And then essentially we just want to come straight down here. There we go, very nice. And then we could also do something with the bridge here if we want to. Wonderful. Let's just take a little second here as to how the AI wants to move around. Lots of people taking that crossing already to get onto that bridge, aren't they? I'm guessing to get into the other side, they're not going to come back down here, surely. They might. Although actually what we can do again to help further increase the walkability here is to actually upgrade just a small section of this into the road with grass on it, because it will give us another pedestrian crossing here. Which again is just so nice, right? So just how creative we can be with a simple placement of a service asset, and using some park life assets outside of a park life area with lots of public transport convergence, some trees that we might perhaps not use that often like the large bushes, to create something of a thicker hedgerow. Of course, lots of detail to be had around here with roadies and other park life hedge designs. So just really cool, just piecing together. I'd really advise that you go and do it, especially for those that are hanging around and following the Noobs guide as the series is going on. Just go find the front of a public transport asset. It can be a monorail station, a train station like this, and then just stick a couple of park life assets outside of it, a little bit of commercial, some detailing, some elevated pathways and lots of walkability. And you can sit here for hours and you can just watch it all converge. My word, this is just ultimate satisfaction for me in this game at this point. Yeah, so it just doesn't stop. This is it all the time now for Noobs Guide's walkability. So this is one little suburban design, okay? A couple of park assets, 2 public transport convergence points, and a service asset, just to create a small little focal point at the front of a public transport asset that isn't yet just more mass zoning, alright? Or just a regular plopped park, if you like. Cool, so let's head over to some of these frames now and do some high density commercial stuff as well. Okay, so in the continued theme of looking at cute little suburban detail designs, let's have a look at the entrance to a suburb, okay, where one of our arterial networks connects with the rest of the city, and we're currently left with either empty space or indeed in my case road network frames, as I like to pre-prepare these things, as we know. So when it comes to unique buildings, and there's a couple of little assets that we haven't used from the Japanese content creator pack. Again, if you're missing any of the DLCs that we use across this series, links down to Instant Gaming are below. Really cheap now. But the noodle restaurant is a really nice asset and works near enough perfectly placed right on the corner of a major road like this on a 90-degree snap. What it's going to give you is a little bit of a planter, some car park decals, 2 things that are hugely missing from the vanilla detailing game, but it just makes a massive difference to your corner, okay? So, pretty cool at the minute, but not game changing by any means. What I'd like to do is come into an amusement park pathway with trees. I'm just going to draw a little connection up through here, again respecting our constant themes of walkability. And why don't we go for a slightly Asian themed tree, such as the bamboo. Right, we're next to some of the Japanese content creator assets. Okay. Again, it's all about generating different aesthetics, thinking about assets that you wouldn't normally use together in combination to create these little dedicated suburban spaces. Then how about a touch of the old ramen restaurant next door? Okay, again, it's going to really tie into those sort of slightly Asian vibes that we're generating over this side, okay? It always does look like a little bit of a Chinatown beginning to develop. Well, I guess it's Japantown, isn't it? Because these are Japanese content creator assets, but you get a sort of general vibe, right? Happy with this. What I can see now, though, is a very, very slight dip in the elevation. That's something that we're going to want to address before we place in a second larger asset here. So let's do a little bit of terraforming, right? Just level the terrain out to the height that we want our asset to sit. We're going to push all this frame back up to that space there. There we go. And then I know another asset that's going to work really nicely here, again from the Japanese content creator pack, is the general hospital from the medical tab. And we're going to place that in there, and then we're going to redraw that road that did actually come through here. Alright. So now we just have the thoughtful placement and orientation of a couple of service assets and a couple of unique buildings just to open our suburb, okay? Just to introduce it a little bit. Bit of car parking. Of course, if you're on even a slightly modded version of the game with Move It and car parking assets from the workshop, or ones that you've made yourself in Content Manager, you can just do some really nice things with this. Okay, so I'm going to leave these to sit here. And then I think I'm also going to want to complement some of these main squares over here. So I'm also going to drop in some high density commercial within these frames here, facing the Palm main road, Again, just because I want to build up a little bit of density, a little bit of shopping vibes around here, okay? That's going to be quite nice. Furthermore, I would also like to throw in another unique building here. I'm going to grab myself at the statue of shopping. And again, always looking out for points of symmetry. It's always nice, isn't it? It's going to sit really cutely here, right at the foot of this road network, and also, you know, surrounded by lots of commercial, which is quite appropriate for the building of the statue of shopping, right? So I'm just going to surround this again with a little bit of low density commercial this time. Again, all respecting that central plaza. And of course, we can continue to embellish those designs that come with the actual unique itself, perhaps a little vanilla walking path frame around it, which kind of extends the concrete in a poor man's surface painter sort of way. And again, there's detailing and benches, things that we can grab from our Park Life prop menu. Can be dropped in here, perhaps, you know, a touch of pavilion with a splash bird bath, if you'll excuse the pun. Possibilities are endless. Google Earth is fantastic for stuff like this. Walk down your street and see what's there. And then before you know it, you'll start to customize these really cute, dinky little gorgeous plazas that make an enormous difference to your builds, alright? Of course, keep your eye out here. I definitely don't want the big bite here, so I'm going to let that one upgrade. I am, however, happy with this one because it's kind of backs onto that car park forward, doesn't it? That's perfect. There we go. Yes, please. We're happy with that one. Alright. Cool. So, I'm going to let some of these high density commercials grow up. I'm also going to let some of them be historical at level 1 as well. We'll just wait and see what comes in. Again, speaking of the poor man's surface painter, let's talk about some path designs that can be used within our suburbs as well. If you're going to be running with a frontage network like this, leaving the exact tilage that we have left, you will be able to squeeze in a singular little stretch of vanilla walking pathway, which just works perfectly as the poor man's surface painter, doesn't it? You know, when we factor in zoning and assets, and even the asset like a pathway like this, into our suburban designs, we can come up with much more interesting infrastructure like this. You can switch this out for a park life path if you want. You need a little bit more room because they're slightly wider, but you can still do the same thing. You can also mirror it up onto the other side, which gives you a really important looking boulevard in vanilla. Again, it's all about sort of focusing on the road network detailing as much as the actual detailing itself, right? Cool. So this is starting to grow up. Let's go ahead and zone up some residential real quick. This should hopefully give us the power sync needed once it jumps across. We'll also do a little bit of commercial along here as well, I think. I don't think I'm totally averse to that. Yeah, just some 2 deep commercials. Okay, I'm going to create a little bit of sort of a busy main street here, right? Lots of detailing to be had today, of course. So now I'd like to discuss again the possibility of some path decorations for the tram line. I'm going to bring in a couple of stretches of amusement park path with decoration. Again, just because I want that kind of that red tile look and feature on the pathway itself, alright? So amusement park path is perfect for it. Let's go ahead and upgrade the trees on the pathways now into perhaps something from the content creator collection. Perhaps some of the California fan palm, which we're also familiar with now, thanks to Ilus. Okay. I hope the rain isn't annoying, by the way. I've realised I've been recording this entire section of the video with the rain on. So, do let me know if weather is annoying to watch within the gameplay itself. Alright, but just what a wonderful difference that makes, you know? A little bit of parallel designs around public transport networks, again with all the road frame designs that we've decided on as well, like frontage networks against our collector systems, just leads to so much more interesting and varied commercial designs, right? This is so much better for me than just mass zoning a load of commercial and just letting it grow and then saying, okay, that's great, that demand is satisfied now, let's go and do it again. It's just like, no, let's not. Let's slow down, let's take our time, and let's enjoy crafting these little commercial spaces together. Cool. So I'm happy with this now. Throwing in a unique alongside a public transport line with some high density splashes in here as well. Not everything's low density just because we're out of the downtown. You know, you look across the Noobs skyline now from whatever angle, and there are those little pops of height occasionally. Which again is something I've kind of learned to come and love in this city now since I've been recording it. Used to be quite averse to any high density, sort of looking back in Palaven. The only real high rises were in the downtown. Okay, but this is a nice little design for some commercial suburbia, alright? Couple of uniques, public transport, parallel path action, indeed with poor man's surface painter and continual respect toward the main decorated arterial networks. All ideas we can factor in for detailing an area like this. Otherwise, let's have a look at some high density residential stuff now as well. I just so happen to have had a chirp cinema spawn directly behind the statue of shopping. That's perfect. That's like asset, marriage right there. So if you have the patience for that, or indeed find it and plot the globals, statue of shopping and the chirp cinema are two new spice combinations for us all. All right. Cool. So let's come into the world of high density residential now. And what I'd like to do is respect the one-way tram network that we have flowing around the city. I'd like lots of specifically zoned and specific shapes of high density to be able to grow within this specific spot. So really just the deeper shapes that I'm after here, something like that. So we'll give a ring of high density res for the bulk of this build. We'll bring in a batch of it here. Of course, asset selection, especially with high density residential, is incredibly important, like we have done with our commercials here now. Okay, a lot of these are historicals once I'm happy with their appearance, unless of course they're already level 3, in which case they don't need to be made historical. I'm going to go ahead and relocate my police station further down this way. We'll have it just over here for right now. Would also like a public library, which is something we very rarely use, but is actually a tremendous, really good looking asset. So I think we'll place that here. All right, that's going to give us a really nice, impressive corner unit, isn't it? Even from looking over here now, from sort of the innards of the commercial square, that the library just works, doesn't it? It's a nice focal point. And we're not kind of making a song and dance about it either, we're not putting it on a road with a massive plaza out the front of it and all that kind of rigmarole. It's all just cute and subtle, but appropriate, and looks good as well. So these are coming in now. These are absolutely wonderful. Of course, we all know and love our own favourite high density residential assets at this point. Keep in what you like. We'll also have a bit of low density out here as well. Once it eventually starts to grow, which it probably does want a park, to be fair. It's a bit sparse around here, isn't it? So why don't we have perhaps a little dog park just on the road here? Okay, and then what we can do here is perhaps blend in some more organic looking green belt as part of our residential suburbia sort of design. So between an arterial frame and a local suburban road network, let's throw in a couple of pathways to link them back in two. We'll also grab 3 live oaks and place them sparingly around the space. Each of the live oaks will have a touch of long grass around the base of it. Okay, with a couple of roadies scattered in between as well. Maybe 6 or 7. And then indeed some wild hedge to complement that as well. You can even go down to small vanilla bush if we like. Also, perhaps some of your themed trees as well. If you're tropical, then maybe you can tolerate the occasional palm plant in here as well. Okay. But just some really subtle decoration in the foreground of some of the higher towers. World of difference, right? World of difference. Some fencing would be welcome here as well. If you wanted to be a little bit more landscaped with your sort of suburban green belt decoration, right? Touch of fencing goes a long way. Cool. So bearing in mind as well, this is also a nice way of putting 2 zonings together that do not combine. High density commercial is extremely loud, whereas the threshold of low density residential cannot withstand it. So the consideration of a frontage network against an arterial road separated by some greenbelt is a nice way for us to transition from low to high density, whilst also respecting the noise differences that come with them as well. Cool. So these are growing up. Now we have a train line at the back here too, which could prove a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to grab some fencing again. Surprise, surprise. Let's go for... I think I'm going to do oil industry. Yeah, let's do oil industry. So I want to just line up really nice and tight with the rail line, with the fence. Okay, just let this hug the entire thing. We've got some really cool episodes coming up, integrating the train line into our 4th and final industry build. Really cool. I'm really looking forward to showing you all that, which will probably be next episode, the one after this one. Really cool. Okay, so now I've got this fence in. I'd like to throw in a parallel path pattern. Same again over here, just making sure that we're really respecting that fencing and not breaking it at all. And then just keep it going, and then we do have another road here actually, so this might as well just currently extend out into here, of course with an angle and a road length snap, and then just go there. We know that this will be some sort of frame for something eventually, but for right now it gives us a connection for our path and rail designs. And then what I'm also going to do is give another little high-speed access point in and out of the ore mine. So I'm going to come onto road guideline with a 2-way highway, and then we're just going to let this sit parallel again. And what this will do is just alleviate a little bit of pressure off of the main roads that are currently carrying all of the industrial traffic from the ore mine. So this should be quite nice for us. We'll see the impact of this hopefully in a second, once we upgrade this first section of dirt road into industrial. Okay, so just a small little back entrance into the mine. It's also going to add to our parallel networks that we've got going on against the rail line now, which again is just making all this stuff so much more interesting, isn't it? You know, once we get all these little path networks hooked in, say for example, you know, right here, let's go ahead and bring this one down. Also remove a little bit of that zone in there. Now we know we don't need it. Same again here. Come off that road length one. This can meander all the way around to the crossing alongside cutting back through onto the main street. It's almost about creating these really cute little walkable spaces that just become little spots of personality. Perhaps there's a little bit of overgrown sort of green belt here that banks onto the rail line. So really factoring in the decoration of green belts against current existing networks, you know. There you go. See that high-speed road getting a little bit of use already now? There we go. Just going to help alleviate the pressure. Looks like it wants to rejoin ever so slightly. Although I'm not hating the very slight dip in elevation. It's another very tiny little layer, but I'm happy with it. You can also repeat the fence lining on the right side as well if you like. It's all personal preference. Alright. Cool, and then just a really super overgrown bit of land here. Let's get some live oaks in there. And lots of the taller sort of date palms and stuff too, and perhaps a couple of eastern cottonwoods in there. Definitely some California palms. Then before we know it, just as we see our street view now, we've just got all these little layers of fencing, and eventually that pathway will have people along it. There's a road behind it with a little bit of overgrowth and trams in the foreground. And just, yes, it's just, yes, please. So much fun when you just slow down like this and you just start to craft little suburban sections, and you just end up becoming much more familiar with them. It just makes it, in my opinion at least, of course, not everyone's going to agree, it just makes the game so much more fun to play. And this is actually some magical repeated asset spice. These are all kind of perfect heights for what I wanted them to be. Yeah, let's make all of these historical, shall we? Yeah, let's get all these in. Very nice. Again, you can carry on doing what we've been doing over this side as well. If you want your road network frames to extend out of this side and house some more high density within this space, then we absolutely can. Let's do that together. Let's delete this asset. It's going to be 2 assets, isn't it? That's fine. And we'll just bring this down. We'll make sure that we don't collide with the pathway. And now, again, we can just align up those zoning tiles so we're getting some nice deep zonable spaces. And then we'll go ahead and bring all this in. Now, in fact, why don't we save the zonings that are on this road and do some kind of perhaps little decoration points there so it's not a high density absolutely everywhere, you know? Cool. Getting some patterns, more fencing along here. And again, there's only more opportunities now where our little rail side pathway can continue to converge in and make everyone more walkable. And then this little green belt over here can now just extend out the back and around of these car parks in everyone's favourite designs and fashions, and yes please, okay? So again, just continually respecting networks, slowing it right down, factoring in parallel patterns as to how they look and function, and within a sort of suburban scape and design. I hope you can appreciate and notice the difference that it makes, right? I hope today's episode has been quite useful, kind of a collection of suburban detailing ideas. I think it's one of the things I struggled with when I was sort of a noob at the game the most, is how can I just stop doing 10 by 10 grids of boring low density residential to satisfy the demand and turn it into something a little more thoughtful and well designed. Hope it comes across. However guys, this does feel like a good place for a daytime time lapse. We have some nice fun work to do today, including lots of prop detailing, some benches, things out of the park life prop menu like the pavilions and the bird baths and stuff around our plaza, just to help kind of bring in these sort of open air recreational vibes that I've developed on this part of the map, alongside some asset selection as well. Might not be massively happy with this guy, but we'll wait and see. But most of the people around here are okay. More path detailing in and around these spaces, again just to help bring more detail in, alongside more path networks around the low density part of town. And again, detail up some smaller spaces like this. Perhaps again with some park props, maybe some of the slides would work nicely here as perhaps as a communal playground for any children that live within these sort of housing projects in the high density part of town. The space between the tram plaza and the high density, I think I'm just going to keep as open parkland and really just allow the tram to flow through that. Maybe turn it into a generic park life area, just so we can have some cafes or gazebos or whatnot. But I think, just a little bit of open, green, breathable space can also be used nicely in a transition period. So I'm going to be happy with that. And then again, more selective zonings and continual developments of the high density patterns that we've done over here against the rail line, just to help bring in that population. Alongside all our asset refinements, bring in some bush patterns around the back, more public transport and walking convergence wherever we can find it. But otherwise, let's continually detail our simple suburban detailing ideas, and then we'll be right back. Okay guys, so let's have a detailing review, shall we? And we've added in a small little micro green cities district with lots of one deep commercial in order to decorate the side of a tram line. Really after these kind of assets here, these little cafes, which just works so nicely, especially as the trams pass by here as well. It's that really super cute aesthetic, so super happy with that. Brought in some playground detailing at the foot of some of the high density towers, again just as a nice template to fill some of that awkward space next to your high density areas, and the kind of overgrown pathside rail design has continued to envelop around the back of all these assets as well. Alongside some light pathwork and detailing work around the tram stop, of course, benches and pavilions and taxi stands, all our little favourite vanilla detailing palettes that we know at this point. Likewise, the suburbs have been crafted out, and I'm super happy with the little cross section here of kind of expanded infrastructure and greenbelt designs to help shelter from that noise pollution and provide a nice, sensible, good-looking transition. And this little high-speed access road from the industry is siphoning off a nice little portion of the traffic. Just sort of see here that it just siphons off maybe 10-15% of the traffic off of that road, and of course as the city grows around this will only increase. And I'm really happy again with the aesthetic of a rail crossing coming past all this heavily overgrown rail stuff, so we're super happy with it, turned out really nicely. The bush and farm fence tramline suburb has continued to be expanded around the back of the hospital. Again, just slowly climbing towards those population milestones now. You know, even at this point in the game, we're still not rushing to milestones, right? It's a nice slow race while we get there. And then some fencing around the back of the hospital with some boreal pine and green tree green belt designs in, which is quite cute. Quite a fan of this one. The definition of asset selection and placements has come into play here. Just enormous lover of these Japanese buildings that I've generated behind one of the university city assets with the bamboo and car parking at the front. This whole square is like one of my favourite parts of the city now. We take this as a spice sample, right? It's super cute, really happy with it. Lots of extreme hedge detailing around the plaza and feeding in the pathways into the unique itself and just giving it a lot more landscaping as opposed to just kind of drawing it in and hugging it. And these little pathways do get used as well. There you go, you can see someone just took the pathway in and out of the plaza, so they're actually using it as a connection, which is really cool. There you go, another one's just taking it out right there. So yeah, really cute functional plaza spaces, of course, with lots of commercial. This is like the happiest accident ever. I love the chirp cinema at the foot of the shopping plaza there. Just, yes please, right? Super nice, really happy with that. Then again, lots of detailing around the tram as it comes through the area, of course, with more specific commercial zoning, and then we move into some more generic open greenbelt spaces through this side. Where we arrive at the tram plaza, where we will have a short up on the channel of all the walkability through here, but just some repeated linden trees with some of the basic park life hedges, and again of course lots of walkability and just, oh yeah, so happy with it, so happy with it. Again, some repeated tree designs with some hedges along a fence, just to help tie in all of our detail and decoration around this part of Noveria. Then also added in some amusement park assets alongside a skate park, almost as it is kind of like a pop-up sort of playground or county fair that appears every couple of weeks, maybe once a month. Kind of pops up and it's got a little bit like nasty ore fencing around it, and it just sort of sits against the rail here. And it's not maybe the greatest place in the world, but it's just like a sort of a cheap and cheerful day out. What's like the vibe I was going for here. So just some amusement park assets along the road, you know, just sort of being creative and inventive with what you can do with the park assets outside of a park, like we've done here with the amusement parks, and then using the plazas here in repeated patterns just to help sort all this out. So it's really nice, really happy with it, came together really cutely. But otherwise guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares below really do help me out. Equally as much if you haven't enjoyed it, then leave me a dislike as well. And if you really like to help support the work, please check out the links to Patreon, Instant Gaming and merchandise below. Thank you for bearing with me through COVID voice. We realised we've not had many streams recently. Again, it's just COVID. Once we are over it, we will be streaming again. So thank you for all the patience. I hope you're enjoying the videos still. Really happy with Noveria. These sort of slow suburban editions have just been so much fun to craft, and I hope you're seeing the result of that in the final product, right? If we're comparing these real kind of tailored suburbs to the ones that we were making when we first started playing this city, which were just very basic frames snapping into the grid to get the most amount of zonability. Now we can be much more creative with the DLCs and all the little tips and tricks that we picked up over the last 6 months. This city has been going now, long time. But please do hang around for some really, really wonderful cinematics. The suburban sprawl that has developed in Noobia now is really there to be seen. So please do hang around and enjoy them. Otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.